Good evening and welcome to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. Tonight we're live from Studio Vanguard and we're linked in with the following repeaters. Do you know which repeaters we're following?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. You got them?
I got them. We have Monument, Noonan, Thomaston, Flagship, Watkinsville. We have Ocala, Jersey, McDonough, Columbus, Blue Ridge, Lula, Rome, Ball Ground, Peachtree, Toccoa, Buckhead, Dallas. We have us here at Vanguard, Cades Cove, Mount Roosevelt, White Oak, East Bernard, Georgetown, Ottawa, Fort Mountain, and Lookout Mountain. And those are quite a few.
That's a monumental list. All right, this net takes place every Thursday evening at around 7:30 p.m. I'd like to thank all of you who've made the North Georgia GMRS the most expansive and active net in the country. Oh, my camera's over here. Yeah. Oh, man. There we go. Okay. Your net control tonight is Atlanta 946, WQIR 514. My name is Justin.
And this is WSAL 368, Atlanta 263. My name is Rogers.
And we've got Blue Ridge 63. Mike is working remotely this evening to help out with logging. And that's the whole crew right there. Julie is off having other adventures. I don't quite know what she's doing. And our regular producer is he's vacationing in Knoxville. Is that right?
He's somewhere on the work assignment, undisclosed location.
Undisclosed locations, so he's hanging out, doing things he's getting paid for instead of the real important things that he could be doing here with us, but that's all right. Tonight, our RF coverage is a pretty big deal. On the net, you can talk about your day's activities, radio equipment, or anything you think we'd like to hear about. This is a family-based network, and we'd love for you to get your family involved. Gather up your wives, your kids, and let's get them all on the air. Guest check-ins are welcome from anyone with a valid FCC call sign. Once the floor is open, it is permissible. Thank you, Gary, for noticing. It is permissible to address other members of the net by their name or tactical unit number. Your FCC call sign is only required when you sign in and sign out of the net. Also, you can tune in to our YouTube channel. It looks like it's up, so I think we're good. We're going to have a tough time keeping up with YouTube comments tonight, but Mike's going to help us out with that remotely, and we'll do the best we can. Just lower your expectations for tonight. We're a little
short-staffed.
Yeah, that's another 5'9" joke. All right, and so there you go. YouTube live stream is up and in play. So with that, tonight's topic is. Do you know what the topic is? What are we talking about?
We're talking about antennas.
Antennas. That's right. Antennas, grounding and bonding. What's the difference between grounding and bonding?
Oh, I haven't gotten to that part of the. Well, I know grounding is when you put the rods in the ground and protect the equipment.
Yeah, and your other equipment would be bonded to those grounds?
Absolutely.
So, and another aspect of that, we also want to be sure that our grounds within the structure are bonded. So if you have an a grounding system for your AC electrical system, you want to bond that to your antenna grounding system. You want to be sure that all of your grounds are always at the same potential, that they're connected. We got a stuck button, don't we?
Yeah. The lower third, your lower third, just keeps popping up. I hit the button,
So
it goes away. And
I
then it
think
comes
it's going to
back.
say Justin at the bottom of the screen all night long, regardless of who's talking or what's up there. So we can make it go away for about 5 seconds, and then it comes right back in. It's supposed to do the opposite. It's supposed to, when you hit the button, it's supposed to come on and display for 5 seconds and then fade out.
When you hit it like this, it's supposed to fade out. It fades out.
Yeah, but it comes right back. So it's somehow it's backwards, and we haven't quite figured out. This is what happens when Gary lets us push the buttons. So we'll continue to experiment with that and see if we can fix it. But we may just be stuck looking at my name on the program all night long. Let me break. So we've got a pretty good run on check-ins so far. We're not going to have Julie's tips tonight, but we are going to have announcements. Let's throw it over to Atlanta 1402 Todd in the Silver Studios for tonight's announcements.
Are you going to do his?
Yeah, I need to. I need to find. Let's see, where's that?
Does that mean I'm up, Justin?
Yeah, that's usually what that means when I call out to you, is that it's your turn to talk. But if you need me to stall for just a minute while I look for your picture, we can do that. And but either way, it is indeed your turn.
Well, Justin and Rogers, it's my pleasure to accompany you tonight. This is Atlanta 1402. My name is Todd, and I'm coming with news and announcements from Studio Silver City. Before we get started, if you're a lifetime member, if you have not already, go to the website and update your membership information. Probably while you're not getting emails. I had to do that as well back before the Smith Family Barbecue. I've got some upcoming gatherings to tell you about this week that are right around the corner. Pay attention, write these down if you're interested. These meetups are a great way to meet your fellow members in and around your area. The Kennesaw gathering, I believe that is Atlanta 557, Dr. Fong, otherwise known as Ed, will meet for lunch on Tuesday, June the 10th at noon at Old Town Tavern and Grill, around the block from the McCollum Airport. And I'm told it's our meet and geek. Will be after lunch, so bring your radio. There'll be some professionals there to address any programming issues or to discuss and resolve. We have a mobile test bench, and we're going to be there to test and program the most popular radios. After lunch, please reach out to Ed, Atlanta 557, beforehand, on the air, or via email at wrgg806@gmail.com if you are planning to attend, so we have enough seats for everybody and know if any radio issues ahead of time. Let me break. Pamela and Ernest have a Peachtree Corners lunch brunch. They'll be meeting on June the 21st, which is the third Saturday of each month. Come on in and cool off at JR's Barbecue Log House Restaurant. The address is 6601 Peachtree Industrial Parkway, Peachtree Corners, Georgia. It's on the top of the hill, right off of Peachtree Corner Circle. Breakfast is served until 2. Try a flying saucer-sized pancake and more. Lunch with homemade vegetables, various sides, and all the barbecue meats available. Let me break. I hear they have some great cobbler or thing also. Respond to Atlanta 849 Pamela or Atlanta 849 Ernest on the radio, or you can email them, Pamela, at Skygazer Pamela 849. That's Skygazer Pamela 849 at gmail.com. Look forward to meeting everybody at the meeting. Let me break. The West Side Luncheon is coming up on Saturday, June the 14th at 11 a.m. at Taco Mac. I believe this is the one sponsored by the Rabbit Hole guys, my friends David and Lisa. The address is 2650 Dallas Highway, Suite 110, Marietta, Georgia, 30064. Join all your friends at the Rabbit Hole Gang for some good old food and fellowship. RSVP to Rabbit Hole at ngGMRS.org. The Northeast Bunch will be having their monthly lunch meetup at Rooster's Cafe in Dahlonega on Wednesday, June 25th at 11 a.m. As always, all current and future members are welcome. For info, please contact Bobby Martin, Atlanta 403, or Joe, GVL, Gainesville 44. We hope to see you there. Let me break.
What is this doing? I don't care about that.
For our new members as well as our guests listening in, let me give you a rundown of some weekly nets. The Ladies Roundtable net is the first Monday of the month. The start time for, well, this is old info. It was supposed to be June 2nd, but I think they have a new one coming up around July the 4th. Justin, I may have printed out some old info here, but in any event, it's the first Monday of the month. The next one will be in July because we just had the last one. Tuesdays on the northeast region of the network, our Skywarn net. This is training net for Skywarn weather spotters in coordination with the National Weather Service, and is available only on the Chattanooga area, which would be the northern core of the North Georgia GMRS network. So if you cannot reach those repeaters, they will be unleaked during that event. Wednesdays feature a short ERC net at 8 p.m. This is a roll call net and is closed to North Georgia GMRS members. This is a net for ERC members only. Please refrain from checking in to that net unless you are an ERC member.
Yep, that one.
The regional net, which we are listening to right now, is on Thursdays with early check-ins beginning at 7 p.m. and the program beginning at 7:30 p.m. This net covers a wide variety of topics. Those topics are usually posted on the Facebook page. We encourage all members to participate by checking in on your GMRS radio on Zello or on YouTube, which is a pretty cool feature. Go back and listen to yourself. If you're unable to check in, this net is streamed live to our YouTube channel and can be replayed later to hear and hear your voice on the appearance. And by the way, go back and look at all the videos. It is pretty cool. And like and subscribe. It helps our reach a little bit. The Friday Night at 9 Simplex Challenge is every Friday night, starting at 8 p.m. Don't ask me why it's 9 and 8. Well, the original one was 9, but anyway, 8 o'clock works better for us. The net starts on the ball ground repeater this week before breaking out to our separate GMRS Simplex frequency. Join your host and my good friend, Dana, high atop Mount Olympus, Atlanta 250, and my other buddy, Jonathan, Gainesville 58, over in Oakwood, somewhere near exit 16, and find out who your Simplex neighbors are. Also, for the amateur license folk, and this is kind of a new thing we're doing, before the GMRS Simplex Challenge is the Friday Night at 9 2-meter Simplex Challenge on the N4 KHQ repeater. And if you don't know, N4 KHQ is our very own Mr. Pete, Blue Ridge 83, who has been very generous in allowing the use of his particular 2-meter machine, which happens to be up there at Bisky Mountain, where we just had a picnic. And the frequency is 146.835 megahertz on the receive, positive offset, so you're going to be transmitting at 147,235, if my math is correct, and I'm not very good at math. Anywho, starting at 7:30 p.m. That's a pretty cool net. This net is for amateur licensed folks only. Your host, Jonathan, KQ4QBU, and Mark, K4KOP, will guide you in a directed net testing VHF, USB, UHF, and SSB frequencies and more. They help you get there. Let me break. The Rabbit Hole Net is all about preparedness. It appears every other Sunday on the network. The next episode will be on June the 8th. I think that's this Sunday. The topic is an open forum. Discuss everything regarding prepping. Early check-ins are at 7, and the net begins at 7:30. Join the live stream. I think that's new. Maybe they got the YouTube up. Like and subscribe. Comment in the chat. Let me break. And this next announcement kind of falls in line with our community service that the North Georgia GMRS network is kind of famous for. The 2025 AJC Peachtree Road Race on the morning of July the 4th is in need of some GMRS operators to help coordinate at the finishing area at Piedmont Park. If you are planning to be in town for the holiday and would like to volunteer or help out, and you're not an athlete and running in the event itself, please contact our very own Atlanta Sit 26. That would be Flip from the beautiful Druid Hills area, and a good friend of mine, for further instructions on how to get involved. You can reach Flip by sending an email. I don't know, Justin, you're in here everywhere. Let me break. You can reach Flip by sending an email to Justin at ngGMRS.org, and it will get forwarded. Anywho, let's move along. Some folks say they would like to get more involved in things related to North Georgia GMRS, and that's true. It's a good way to meet people. The best way to get involved in the inner workings of the network is to show up and serve at events like this. This is how we get to know our volunteers, and this is exactly how most of the North Georgia GMRS regulars came to the position they hold. They showed up. My hope is that North Georgia GMRS will be well represented at the Peachtree Road Race. I can attest to showing up and volunteering. Even though I don't do it all the time, I've met some lifelong friends. Sadly, my next paragraph or so here is had to X out because it's related to the Atlanta Hemp Fest. And I got a notification earlier today that it has been canceled. Not exactly sure why, but Justin and Rogers and all the crew, you'll be disappointed to hear that I'd already had 10 pizza to go boxes ready and 10 pizza balls made up in the fridge, and I was going to deliver those on this Saturday at the Ham Fest, but I guess we'll have to wait till the next one. And once again, please update your membership info if anything changes. And you know, if you become a ham, let us know so we can update the regional rosters of anybody who's become a recent amateur. Current email addresses is how we inform our members of important news and events. Just go to North Georgia GMRS webpage at ngGMRS.org and click on Existing Member Information Update. Fill out the form and indicate that you have read and agreed to the North Georgia GMRS Code of Contact, then click Submit. That's it. It's easy. Well, it's kind of easy if you're smart, but if you're not, then, well, it might take you more, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. Anyway, that's it. It's easy, and it's free. And it's the best way to stay informed about things related to the North Georgia network and your membership.
Go up just a little bit, yeah.
Well, dang. Looks like I'm at the end of the page here, Justin. That's it. If you have any questions, comments, or news to share, please send an email to Justin at ngGMRS.org. Net Control, that's all I have for announcements. Back to you.
All right, Todd. Well, good stuff. That was a very long list of announcements and lots of stuff going on. Some things that were going on that are no longer going on. But there's good news. In light of the cancellation of the Atlanta Hamfest, there will be a work day scheduled right here at Studio B. So you can just bring those pizzas along with a hammer and some nails, and we've got you covered. So we'll put those pizzas to good use, and we'll continue putting some siding on the building and make a little progress here at Studio B, and get a little bit closer to go. I think that Todd did a great job on announcements.
He did, and Todd, you have just a perfect radio voice.
He really
Just
does.
Perfect.
So I would like to offer this. Anybody that agrees with me, that thinks that Todd did a great job on the announcements, send me an email at justin@nggmrs.org. And if you disagree with me, if you don't like Todd doing the announcements, send an email to gary@nggmrs.org. Does that seem seems right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I think that once again, Todd, thank you for helping us out with announcements tonight. And like I say, I think you did a great job. Threw a curveball at him right there at the end. Of course, he was prepared. He was aware of the cancellation of the Hamfest before I was.
Wow.
So yeah, he sent me a text and said it was canceled. I said, "What? No way."
Well, things happen, due to unforeseen circumstances, they said.
Well, I mean, if we'd seen those circumstances, they would be a little better understood.
Right.
So in any case, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing. It requires a huge number of volunteers and coordination with a number of different providers, vendors, etc. And there's a critical mass you have to achieve in order to be able to pull this off. If you can't get the right number of volunteers, that can be problematic. And if you can't get enough vendors, that can be problematic. If you can't get enough funding to cover the costs of renting the facility and expenses associated with that, things like somebody's got to handle the garbage, somebody's got to handle the gates and admissions, somebody's got to handle the logistics within the facility. There's just so many things that have to be coordinated and organized and covered under an event like that. And if you can't get all of that put together, it can be a real challenge. Bobby's breaking the rules. He didn't send an email. He sent a text, and I think he meant to send that text to Gary. I'm not quite sure. Bobby, you'll have to clarify that when it's time for us to talk to you. But in any case, I think let's see, where are we at with things. We're going to take additional check-ins. Is that?
That sounds about right.
All right.
Let's do it.
So tonight's topic once again is antennas, grounding, and bonding. If that's all right with Todd. He thought he was done.
Atlanta 1402 agrees with those topics, Justin and Rogers, and I'm going to do a Facebook poll. I don't trust those direct emails. Let's do a Facebook poll. Comment.
Who is the comment? It sounds like we have a comment with regard to the effort at announcements tonight. I'm curious as to what this comment says. It's a bit out of order, but I want to know. Do you want to know?
I'm curious.
Yeah. So comment. Go ahead.
Apologies. This is Atlanta 1157 WSEL 734. I think Todd did a fantastic job. I guess I'm checking in and checking out. Great job, fellas.
All right, so we'll chalk that one up as one in the Gary column for Todd's performances. Well, no, that's not right. If they liked it, they were supposed to send an email to me, right?
Right.
I've forgotten already. But yeah, let us know what you think about Todd and his announcements, and if we get enough positive feedback, we might share it with him. But when it comes to things like positive feedback, I would offer this, Todd. I'm not one to let the truth get in the way of a good story. So bear that in mind. But with that, let's continue on. Let's continue on with check-ins. We're going to. Where's my mute switch? We're gonna. Excuse me, one moment. There we go. We're gonna change things up just a little bit, and I'm gonna go to flagship check-ins first. We'll make time for other check-ins as we go. So if you're checking in on flagship, at flagship only, please call net control now.
This is Chad Egan 260 WDSM 494. I'm not sure if I made it in earlier. If I didn't, I'm checking in now. I'm checking in. If not, I apologize.
WROE 368, ATL 870, Dale in Peachtree Corners. And I concur. I mean, Todd is amazing. He does a great job. Thumbs up.
This is. Good evening, Net Control. This is WRNW 488, Atlanta 532, Tom in Flowery Branch. I'll be checking in and checking out tonight. And Todd, you're the boss tonight.
I think that was a Bruce Springsteen joke.
Was it? Maybe. Well, I know Todd's ego is getting more.
It's probably a good thing he's not here tonight, because there's no way he'd fit through that door.
No way. No way possible.
Yeah. How about YouTube folks? Any comments on Todd's delivery of announcements tonight?
Atlanta 228.
Let's see if we can
I have a comment.
get some interaction in there. Let's see. I've had a window.
Atlanta 965, checking in and checking out.
All right. Atlanta 911 is trying to check in as well. We had a comment from Atlanta 228, Ray. We'll come to you here in just a little bit, but we'll try to get these check-ins wrapped up. Let me go ahead and acknowledge our YouTube check-ins in this round of check-ins. So these are all YouTube check-ins. We have Atlanta 249 Londia in Covington, Dallas 592 Michael in Dallas, Rome 11 Mark in Adairsville, Atlanta 374 Lamar in Dawsonville. We have WRWY 456 Dave, the Hillbilly Ham from Rogersville, Missouri. We have WRQE 398 R. Ferguson is a guest from Hayesville, Kansas. We have Gainesville 27 Charles in Gainesville. Gainesville 58 Jonathan in Oakwood. Is that John Wood? That doesn't sound near as good as Nick would.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. So
You
we'll
can only
we'll
do the
stick
wood-
with we'll stick with Mr. Simplex for Jonathan.
Yeah, only did the wood thing once, maybe.
Yeah, I think that could turn out ugly real quickly. Chattanooga 6'9", Ronnie the Velvet Elvis says that Todd delivered announcements better than he does pizza. I think that is a factual statement, and good observation, Ronnie. Atlanta 355 Damon in Canton also YouTube check in. WRVY 564 Gary lives in Florida, but he has property in Canton and Royston. So Gary is a guest check in on YouTube tonight. WRYQ 727 Miko has been a long time YouTube regular for us. Glad to have you with us again tonight, Miko. We have Chattanooga 32 Scott in Rossville. Toccoa 10 David in Lakemont, first time check in. We have Atlanta 379 Scott in Sandy Creek. Also, we have Gainesville 26J in Flowery Branch. Rome 12 Mark gives 2 thumbs up for Atlanta 1402 announcements. And we have McDonough 71 Drew in McDonough are our YouTube check-ins. And so the RF check-ins that we had off of the flagship repeater were Atlanta 1157 Greg in Dawsonville, in and out. Atlanta 870 Dale in Peachtree Corners is in. She also had favorable remarks for Todd's announcements. Had Atlanta 532 Tom in Flowery Branch is in and out. Atlanta 965 Michael in Woodstock in and out. In Atlanta 991 Kate in Dawsonville in and out. We'll continue with check-ins from any repeater anywhere, including the flagship machine. We'll come back here in just a few minutes for Zello check-ins only. Any repeater anywhere, including flagship. Net control standing by.
WSFR 920 Atlanta 306 George in Loganville, Georgia. Checking in, checking out.
And can you just scroll that screen up a little?
WRAS 515 Atlanta 911 Cassandra in Woodstock. I may be here, but I may not be here.
Sierra Golf, Charlie, 726, Hiawassee, Georgia, Andrew, in and out, visitor.
Yeah, probably need to go up a little bit higher.
I'll scroll with it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, net control acknowledging Atlanta 306 George in Loganville, in and out. Atlanta 911 Cassandra in Kennesaw, in and she's in and in. She's just all the way in. And then we also heard had a rough copy. We heard a visitor in Hiawassee. Didn't get the FCC call sign, but we saw you come in on the Lula machine. So we'd love to get your call sign if you can come back with that. So after we get our Hiawassee check-in, we'll open up the floor for any Zello check-ins. So we'll get this guy from Hiawassee in here, and then I'd like to hold RF check-ins until we get our Zello check-ins in. Net control standing by. All right, that was really tough. We just couldn't get enough audio through the noise to identify that. So, station, you'll need to make some improvements to your signal. Either get to higher ground, find a way to elevate your antenna system, or get to a base radio. And another thing that you might try, and this works a lot of the times, is just talk loudly into your microphone. Sometimes you can modulate your way through that noise and get over it if you just get real loud into your microphone and not quite shouting, because that will just result in distortion. But a nice, loud, firm voice directed straight into the microphone. And, just as an example, you can kind of hear the difference when I get off axis from my microphone. It doesn't sound like I'm present, but when I turn in my chair and I get right into the microphone, you can still hear me, but my level goes down, the fidelity isn't there. But when I get into the microphone the way that I'm supposed to, then it's quite loud and it's very, very easily to read. So that sometimes can be the same effect on your radio. And so try that one more time in Hiawassee.
Whiskey Sierra Golf Charlie 726 Andrew with Hiawassee.
All right, we got it that time. We heard Whiskey Sierra Golf Charlie 726 Andrew in Hiawassee. Excellent. Glad got you in here, and that did make the difference. That extra oomph into your microphone allowed you to modulate through the noise, and we got a copy in here. If you want to know what you sounded like to us, you can go to the YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for North Georgia GMRS and find tonight's episode. It's titled Antennas, Grounding, and Bonding. And if you go to about 15 minutes, oh wait, no, that's incorrect, about 40 minutes, 38, 39, 40 minutes, you'll hear your calls and you'll hear what we heard, and that might help you to understand what your radio sounds like and the difference from your last transmission. So make note of where you were and how you handled your microphone, and that might help in your radio efforts. All right, let's take a break for Zello check-ins only. This will be an awkward pause. We want to leave a little window here exclusively for Zello operators. Sometimes that PTT can be a bit of a challenge, so just bear with us here for about a minute and a half. Net control standing by for Zello check-ins only.
Says Columbus 2525 WSCC 901. Checking in and out on Zillow from West Point, Georgia.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call it at that. We heard Columbus 25, Peter in West Point, checking in on Zello and is in and out. We've got you in there, Peter. That's going to do us for check-ins at this point. We'll take one more round of check-ins when we get to the end of the program before we close. And so anybody that hasn't had a chance to get in will have that opportunity. Also, you can check in on the in a live chat on YouTube. So if you've got any questions or comments, or if you just want to check in without waiting to the end of the program, go to YouTube and go to the live chat and put your comments in there. We'll be looking at those comments, and if we see any questions that need to be brought to the air, we will endeavor to do that. We're a little bit short-staffed tonight, so I hope that you'll give us some grace if we miss anything along the way. Like, for instance, a silly lower thirds tag with my name and call sign on it. We can't make it go away. We've rebooted a lot of things, and I mean, if we press the button, it goes away for 5 seconds, and then it pops right back in. It's supposed to do the opposite of that, so I'm not sure what we'll do. The only thing left to reboot are things that will knock us off the air if we reboot them.
Yeah, don't want to do that.
So, yeah, I mean, we could even reboot the computer and be okay, but that's not what's driving... I don't believe that's what's driving the lower thirds graphics, so it's got to be right there in the ATEM at this point. So we're just going to, it's not perfect, but it's live, and we're going to run with it. I don't know what you do. And so it's got my name underneath your picture.
Well, I have a brother named Justin, so, it's
well,
a nice name.
That
nice
works.
Name.
It's just the wrong call sign, that's all.
Right.
But who's going to know? All right, then. So tonight's topic is antennas, bonding, and grounding. So, what? When you're talking about like a car antenna. Grounding and bonding is a kind of a different thing, because in that environment, you're going to be grounded to the body of the car. We're not really looking at anything like lightning protection, because the radio blowing up is probably the last concern that we have when lightning strikes your car. It's probably going to wipe out your car's computers. It's going to wipe out a lot of electronics. If you take a direct hit in your car from a lightning strike, there's just not really any way to protect from that I can think of. Polyphaser is not going to do it, because you don't have a, in a mobile environment, you don't have a low impedance path to ground. The best you can do is whatever impedance is being offered by your tires. So you're always gonna have a potential between the chassis ground of your vehicle and the ground of the earth. And that potential is always going to vary. So things like static electricity, we're going to change the relative voltage on the chassis of your vehicle relative to the earth ground. That's constantly going to be changing. And anytime that you touch your car, you're approaching your car and you touch it and you get a static zap off of your car, that's what that is. The voltage of your vehicle relative to the voltage potential of the earth ground are different to the degree that it jumped that gap and gave you a little spark on the fingertips there. So grounding in an automobile is not really what we're talking about tonight. It is important that you have a well-grounded antenna system, but in this case, we want to ground that system to the vehicle chassis and back. Definitely want to ground the negative power feed to the radio back to your battery. Those things are important for the best performance, lowest noise in a mobile installation. If you've got an aluminum body or a plastic body, running an extra ground conductor to your antenna mount can always be a good idea. But I think what we're really focusing in on tonight is the grounding system for a base radio station. So one thing that I'd like to point out, so many times we Here, take a look at that. So many times we have storms that roll in, and we'll hear people say, "Well, I'm going to get off the air. I'm going to disconnect my antenna. I'm going to set my make my equipment safe while the storm rolls in." We don't really have that option, from the repeater network. The repeaters are built so that they will survive a storm. Most of our antennas are DB420s. And that's a DC grounded antenna, which means that the mast of that antenna is physically bonded to the tower structure itself, and that tower is also grounded with multiple ground rods at ground level. So the tower itself will offer a very low impedance path to ground. The impedance between the tower and ground is less than the impedance between the antenna system and ground. So for a lightning strike to hit a tower, the majority of the energy is going to travel not through the antenna system, but through the tower itself and directly into ground. Hopefully, enough of that energy goes directly through the tower and not through our antenna system to avoid any damage that we might see inside the shelter. But all of our locations are equipped with lightning protection. And these are just simply devices that are designed to shunt any excess voltage from the antenna system to ground. So when you see a voltage spike come down that line from the antenna, rather than pass that energy to the radio, because that is a direct path, we have a device in that lightning arrestor that will absorb that excess voltage and shunt most of that energy to ground. Now the radio may still see some of that energy, and it might get damaged. It might damage output transistors in the power amplifier, and it might not. And and when you take a look at these commercial radio stations, our repeaters, the radio systems that we use for police and fire, the radio systems that we use for commercial broadcast, TV and FM radio and even AM radio, are all capable of operating in all weather environments. And unless something happens that breaks that tower, they stay on the air. So with that in mind, it's possible to build a station that's capable of operating in all weather conditions. And we just need to follow the same guidelines and same principles that these big guys do, so that we can build a station that's robust enough that that'll live through a thunderstorm. So, and that's really the goal here, right? Because if you have to shut your radio station down because a storm is approaching, then you're not prepared to receive any emergency information, and you're not prepared to send any emergency radio information.
Yeah, you don't want to be that vulnerable.
Yeah. You disconnect yourself from that communications system, and you put yourself in a kind of a zone where you can't be reached, and if something happens to you, you can't reach out for any guidance. So we would like for many of us that are capable of building a robust station to do just exactly that. Let's break. Build that robust station so that it will survive those storms, and so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Are some of the things that we need to do to protect our systems. And the other thing that can happen, even if you've got just a modest fiberglass antenna on a 20 or 30 foot mast just above your roof, you've got 25, 30 feet of coax coming off of that to your radio. Those antenna systems in a wind can develop tremendous amounts of static electricity. And even though it's not lightning, it can still be very damaging to a radio system. So our lightning protection can also protect against some of that static discharge energy as well. And properly grounding, not only do we want to ground the mast, but you also want your lightning protection to be grounded. And you want that ground system to be bonded to the grounding system within your house's electrical system, so that you're at the same voltage potential throughout, that there's no difference from one ground rod to the next. And you can see that sometimes. If you drive a couple of ground rods 30, 40 feet away, you can measure a difference sometimes in potential between those ground rods. So if you bond them together, you eliminate that difference. Now they're forced to be at the same potential, and that will equalize any charges from within the house. So if your grounding system becomes energized from a strike, all right, and you haven't bonded between your two ground rods, you're going to have one ground system that's going to be at a voltage potential much, much, much higher than the other ground system. So what kind of equipment might exist between those two grounding systems? Your radios. Your radios are really about the only thing that's going to exist between those two grounding systems. And so if you create a high potential on one and no potential on the other, you're going to create a path for current to flow, and that current might flow right through your radio.
So that could be potentially very dangerous.
Could be dangerous. Could be could
worse.
catch equipment on fire. It could shock someone if you're operating the equipment at that moment. But it will probably make smoke escape from your radio. So it's very important that we bond our electrical systems so that we don't have any difference in potential from one side of that to the other. Let me break. Okay. My habit is to come on the air and talk endlessly and blow up the timeout timer, and the guys are just trying to rein me in a little bit so that I can so I don't get cut off. So we've got lots of folks trying to help, and I wasn't sure if I had a different fire to put out with all the chimes coming in on the text messaging there. So
well, everything is working out as it should, though.
Yeah, we're doing good. We've got lots of support here, so very good stuff. So let's go ahead and we'll go to the field here and see if anybody has any questions or comments or anything that we can elaborate on with regard to grounding. One more thing I'd like to talk about. And, you can search this. I searched for it just this week kind of in preparation, and I really wanted to spend more time in a document, but I haven't been able to. But Motorola publishes a document. I think it's called R56. It's a standards document, and it talks about building a commercial radio station. And of course, most of us aren't doing a commercial radio station, but all of these principles apply. All right, and all of these principles are what we apply at locations like Flagship, Fort Mountain, at Buckhead. These are all standards that North Georgia GMRS Network abides by at all of our radio installations. And that's why we don't worry when the storms roll in. We don't worry about our repeaters being affected by the storms. We expect our equipment to operate through the storm. Every now and then there's an exception to that. We've taken a few hits at Fort Mountain. We've taken a few hits at Flagship. We've had some equipment destroyed at Flagship. Man, that's a high site, and it takes a lot of hits. Not every one of those hits destroys equipment. Some of the equipment that we've seen damaged at Flagship was because of other stuff. Other stuff that was on the tower that carried energy into the shelter through a Cat 5 cable.
So what, like tree limbs or something like that, or
no, like lightning that hit the tower that wouldn't have done any damage whatsoever, but because the Cat 5 cable doesn't have the same kind of lightning protection, even though it did have a protector on it, it's not the same kind of protection that we put on our coax, and so that energy came in and it destroyed equipment outside of just that networking gear for Flagship. And if anybody wants to know why Blue Ridge has been offline for so long, we can't put equipment on the tower that's gonna create those kind of vulnerabilities. So the ubiquity stuff is just not it's just not going to work for us. I'm sure there is a hardened level of that equipment that could maybe serve that purpose, but it's just not. Flagship is a tough environment. In the wintertime, there's huge ice. Let's break. It's just a tough environment for equipment, and you've got to have the right kind of equipment on that tower if you want it to survive. things like fiberglass antennas don't take ice very well.
I saw a YouTube video where this guy had a fiberglass antenna, and the wind came and the snow, and it just kind of snapped it in two.
And that's something to consider. I mean, we don't see much of that kind of weather in most of where we're at, but high up on that mountaintop, there's a lot of ice that accumulates on that tower. And then on a warm day, when that ice begins to melt, huge chunks will fall from that tower. And if you were there at the last picnic, if you had a chance to go inside, you can see where the rafters have been broken time and time again at Flagship. And it's been repaired over the years. I understand Professor Pete has now put the 5th layer of sheet metal on that roof.
Oh my goodness!
Julie and I were there. There's pictures of Julie on the roof screwing that sheet metal down. So there's 5 layers of metal on that roof now. So when ice hits, there's enough spring and bounce in that roof that it's unlikely the ice is going to come through the roof now. But it's tough. It's tough on that building. It's tough on equipment. So if you've got a mast on the side of your house and you're 25, 30 feet up, you're probably never going to see the kind of ice that Flagship sees. But those fiberglass antennas, they won't take it. They just won't take it.
So what do you do if you have one of those? Just strap it in and hold on for dear life?
Well, if a fiberglass antenna is what you have, like I say, we're probably not going to see the ice at most of our homes that Flagship sees. So I think we're going to be okay. And in a circumstance like that, you do make the best installation you can, and understand that sometimes things happen, and nothing we do is really ever permanent. When we create things, they don't last as long as they do when God creates them.
Right, you're right. And even look at technology. Like, we can think that one thing is going to happen with it, and then you start the show, and it has a mind of its own.
Yeah. We're on the railroad. We've got a handful of locations that are all relay logic. Just relays. Just racks and racks full of relays at a control point. And, that stuff just always works. It just always works. And some of those locations have been in service since the 40s.
Wow.
Since the 40s. And we're taking that equipment out, and we're installing solid state equipment in there that I guarantee you will not live for 80 years.
Oh, no.
Won't live for 50 years.
Stuff made way back when is still going on today.
Yeah. So let's break. So very good stuff. Let's check in first with Atlanta 228 Ray up here in Canton, just down the road a little bit from where we're at here in Woodstock. Ray, do you have any questions or comments about radios, antenna systems, grounding, and or bonding? Ray, go ahead. All right, I'm going to show Ray as in and out, and we're going to keep right on trucking and head right on down to Chattanooga 84 Jim in Hickson. Jim, do you have any comments for tonight's net? All right, we'll show Chattanooga 84 as in and out and keep right on moving. Next, we have Atlanta 649 Adam in Marietta. We didn't know if you were in and out. There was a double right there, but let's try for Adam. Atlanta 649. All right. We thought that he might have been in and out, but I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want to exclude anybody if he was going to be there. So next, that'll come to Atlanta 403, Bobby at the Vortex. Bobby, go ahead.
What's up, guys? We were just watching the deer out Joe's back there. What was the question? I kind of missed it. We got entertained by the deer.
Yeah, sure. Tonight we're talking about antennas, grounding, and bonding.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you asked me a question or something, but that's all right. Yeah, I really have no questions on it because I've had the same temporary system of grounding and bonding on my antennas and posts for, I don't know, temporarily set up for the past 8 years now till I get my tower up. But, yeah, I mean, once I do get the tower up, I'm going to invest in those polyphasers you were supposed to get me for Christmas that year. And, most of my grounding is all bonded back to the house ground and everything. So I'm pretty much set with it. I just got to get my tower up and get everything completed and do it the right way or as close to the right way as I can.
Yeah, the polyphaser is that's the lightning arrestor of choice, right? So you can get the Workman lightning arresters. Those are really made more for, I think, for CB applications or for radios that you just don't really care about. You can use the Workman. It's a get what you pay for kind of a situation. So for $20, you can get a Workman lightning arrestor. And some of those even have the little cartridge that you can replace. So it's like a little gas tube that goes off if you take a lightning strike. I don't know how you tell if they've gone off because there's not like a little indicator or a window on it. So I don't know how you can ever know that it's gone off and it needs to be replaced. I don't really even know where to get the replacement cartridges at. And at $20 a pop,
might as well just get another one.
Yeah.
At that point.
Because there's a fair chance that if it's taken a strike, there may be more damage than just the little gas tube. It may be fried inside, and I don't know that you really want to trust that for taking another hit. So the polyphaser is a device that can take multiple hits. And usually when a polyphaser fails, it will fail closed. So it presents a short in the circuit. And if it's failed, it'll be shorted, which will cause your radio to see high SWR. And if it's proper radio, it will safety itself out. It just won't drive into that load. And because it's shorted, any energy that comes down the line gets shunted to ground. So that's the fail-safe on a polyphaser. And one of the reasons you see them in commercial sites at just absolutely everywhere. So the right place to install your polyphaser, right? So you want that as close to the structure as you can get it, because if you put the polyphaser out by the tower and then you've got 15 or 20 feet of line between a tower and a house, that line's not really protected, right? So you want to install that polyphaser as close as you can to the structure. Preferably just outside of the structure, but the polyphaser is not meant to be outside. You have to put it in an enclosure and protect it from the elements. So you can find a number of ways of doing that. Usually it's some kind of a metal box. I've even seen plastic boxes where they'll bring in the coax, the heliax, the hardline, whatever you've got, in from the bottom of the box into the polyphaser, the lightning arresters, grounded properly. You want a short ground path as you can create, and you want that ground to be bonded to all of the other grounds, and that's your best way. And if you've got a station that you've built up that way using polyphasers, then you've got an all-weather 24/7 communications platform that you can operate in any kind of weather without concern or fear of the weather conditions. So if you've built a system that has no lightning protection in it, and you you jump in the car and you go out to dinner, and you're at a restaurant 4 or 5 miles, 15, 20 minutes from your house, and a storm rolls through. You can't be there to disconnect the equipment, right? So you could have the equipment in peril because there's no protection on it, and there's really nothing you can do because you can't just drop everything and run home. You're kind of stuck there until the meal is done, or if you're visiting with people, that social function is done, and then you can go home and go play with your radios. But so you really want to build a system that's more resilient than that. Let me break. And I think that's what Bobby is in the process of building. He still has his tower to put up. It's the same tower he's been trying to put up for the last 8 years. But he has what he calls a temporary grounding system. So it's only temporary unless it works, right?
I was about to ask, how does that work as a temporary?
Well, let's ask Bobby to explain his temporary grounding system.
Well, it's basically, the fence posts that I got my antennas up on. They're grounded to that, and right directly below my deck is a ground rod driven into the ground, and they're all bonded together. Then it goes around the side of the house with some heavy gauge wire and grounds to the house system. So everything's bonded together, and then I got my little chintzy, what you call them, workman or whatever, lightning arresters coming in as the line comes into my kitchen and protects my radios. And yeah, it's not perfect, but it's something, and at least it protects what I got going. So it's just temporary, but once I get the tower up and stuff, I'll have a much better system, but it'll stick with the basic bonding and everything. So yeah, I'm happy with it for now. I've had no problems, and everything seems to work pretty good.
That's good stuff, and that's the most important thing, right? Is to get on the air. That's first. We have to get on the air, and then once we've done that, we make incremental improvements to our station until we get it the way that we want it. We can't necessarily have everything that a quality radio station consists of right out of the gate. The most important thing is to get on the air. And if that means you're disconnecting antennas in the storms for the first 6 months or for the first year, then that's, there's nothing wrong with that other than the convenience factor and the potential of missing that if you're away from the house when the storm rolls in. And the chances are you're not going to get a hit. The chances are you're not going to get hit, but that chance isn't zero.
Right.
So, and at some point in time, all those statistical numbers will fall out of the sky, and bang, you've taken a strike. And so the better you can be prepared for that, the more likely your equipment will survive. And with a direct hit, there's still no guarantees. But you don't necessarily have to have a direct hit for equipment to be damaged. When I was a kid, my parents had the big 12-foot aluminum dish, satellite dish with the actuator that would track satellites across the sky. And, there was a rack full of electronics. There was a power supply. There was a satellite tuner. There was a decoder box. There was the other box that you used to position the satellites. Let's break. To position the dish so that it would see different satellites, because some channels were on one satellite, other channels were on another satellite. Well, we took a lightning strike, and we actually saw the lightning hit out in one of the pastures, 400, 500, 600 yards away from where that satellite equipment was at. But that energy came through the ground, and it entered the cable that went from the equipment out to the dish, and it blew up everything. It blew up the LNA on the dish. It blew up the actuator motor. It blew up the power supply. It blew up the control box for the actuator. It blew up the tuner. I mean, all that equipment got smoked from a lightning hit that was indirect.
You know, I think that's one thing that we forget about is once lightning hits, it still has energy and it still travels.
Yeah.
And it can travel, you know, like you said, it can go across the yard or go across, you know, a field.
And it actually traveled several hundred yards.
Wow.
It was and I have to believe that the amount of energy that entered the electrical system for that satellite dish was a fraction of what hit the ground, because nothing caught on fire. Most of the equipment you could kind of tell that it didn't smell right, but there were no outward signs of flames or physical damage. And I remember, you know, that was an argument, was because the equipment looked pristine in all the photos that were taken for insurance. And there was a conversation, are you sure this equipment is damaged? Because it looks just fine. And
well, yeah, that's the thing. Things can look fine, but on the inside, it's fried.
Yeah. So all that equipment had to go to, I believe it was a place called Classic Stereo in Fort Wayne. It had to go there. The insurance company wanted it to be bench checked and evaluated to determine if any of it could be salvaged. All of it ended up being smoked. Everything. So it was a several $1,000 insurance claim when it was all said and done. But it was kind of a neat thing because, I mean, ended up with all new equipment. And in that time, back in the 80s, that stuff was changing fast. And so it was pretty neat to have all new equipment.
So nice little upgrade.
Nice little upgrade. That wasn't the intention, but that was the result. But I know that, you know, based on what insurance is these days, we'd be really lucky to get our radios covered if we got struck by, you know, deductibles are so much higher now. And that equipment, relative to what it is, that satellite equipment was thousands of dollars. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was thousands of dollars. And very few of us have thousands of dollars worth of radio gear in our station. Oftentimes we have used power supplies, or we have instead of buying a brand new Astron power supply, Instead of buying brand new, we find these things at Hamfest, like the one we're not going to go to on Saturday.
Unfortunately.
But that's a great play. I found several power supplies at Hamfests. And I love the linear power supplies. But, you know, the switching power supplies that are made today do a really good job. So, you know, that's an option as well. I think that I can't multitask for the life of me. I think that the opportunity to buy that equipment is so much easier to buy. So for a few $100, we can have a pretty nice radio station. Whereas if you're buying all new, if you're going to go to Hobbit Communications and you're going to buy, you know, the base package with the power supply, that Samlex switching power supply built in. Mm-hmm. And these switching power supplies today are really, really good compared to what they were just 10 years ago. You can have a whole system in a box for $600 or $700. I don't remember what the price is on the system that Gary has, but it's really bad. Attainable.
Right.
It's not like buying a satellite system in the 80s. I don't know. Can you still buy? I mean, I know the Dish Network. I mean, they pretty much give you the dish for that. If you're going to subscribe and you're going to commit to a year or 2 years, then the equipment is more or less free, right?
I think so. I think that's how they did it. I had it once in
right.
the apartment that I had, but and the guy came and installed it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think the equipment is very, very different than what it once was. But can you still get the big 9-foot aluminum dish, and can you still tune all those channels? I bet they're all encrypted now, and none of that stuff is really.
That's what I'm saying. It.
Yeah.
Probably decommissioned and.
Well, those satellites are still up there. Some of them are.
Well, a lot of people probably just stream now, I guess. But
yeah.
But you know, I want a home phone. You know, it's hard to just find a home phone. It's a regular landline these days.
Yeah, I mean, you can get one that plugs into the back of your router.
Yeah.
You know,
but just traditional.
Yeah.
Like old school.
Well, I don't know that the old school phone, the analog POTS line, I don't know that truly exists anywhere anymore, because even if they give you that point of service, that point of telephone service is going to ride a pair of wires back into the very first demarcation that the telco has, that box at the end of your neighborhood. And as soon as it gets there, it's digital. It's going to be converted to digital from there, and it's going to be carried over as TCP over IP through the cloud and to wherever it's going.
Well, and that's why I love, the GMRS radio and how we have it set up, with everything analog. I still love the analog world, and, just tinkering and figuring out, how to make things work, or how not to get struck by lightning or having your equipment damaged. So, it's still a place for, analog technology.
Yeah. There is, and there's a lot of things that I love about analog too, and I've recently fallen in love with vintage audio equipment, and I'm wanting I'm wanting my old Marantz receiver back.
Okay.
I want my old Pioneer speakers that I had, when I was 15, 16 years old. I want that sound system again. And so I've been on the hunt for equipment. And what I want is to reproduce my old stereo system. What I'm finding is that those Marantz receivers have aged out to the place where you can't find transistors for them anymore. Capacitors have to be replaced pretty much no matter what. And so finding one that is in restorable condition is tough. There's plenty of them out there. I was excited when I saw how affordable they were. You can buy Marantz receivers anywhere from between $75 up to several $100s. But if you want one that's been recently restored, you're going to pay several $100s. And if you buy one for $75, it might not be restorable.
So you're rolling the dice.
It really is. So there's, and I never would have considered that there would be old analog audio equipment that couldn't be restored, but we're there. We're at that place. Parts are just no longer out there. They're just not there, and so that's disheartening in a way. But the old analog speakers, the old Pioneer speakers that I've had, my quest is, because there's plenty of them out there. There's a blue million of them out there, but they're all beat up. I'd like to find a set where the cabinets are nice. I don't care about the cones because those can be replaced pretty easily. But the cabinets are what I'd like to have, decent cabinets. So if you've got an old pair of Pioneer speakers that you're willing to let go of at a reasonable price, I'm interested. But
and I may know a guy who finds certain items and old school items, vintage items. So I'll keep my eyes open for
definitely.
You too.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. So love to build. I wish I had my old album collection, but just not seeing what the future would be, I let that go. And man, I'd like to start restoring that collection, but maybe one of these days. But that's a whole different rabbit hole. Tonight we're talking about antennas and grounding and bonding. And one of the things that, when I was doing some research for the program, I came across some interesting pricing on polyphasers. And it excited me so much that I pulled the trigger and I purchased a couple of them. And I'm looking actually at Amazon right now. I found polyphasers for $30 a piece, and I bought them. I bought all they had. Let's break. And I'm looking now at different lightning arresters, and there's a ProxyCast, a lightning arrestor for $18. Looks like that's for 75 ohm TV systems. And then there's I've never heard of this one before. I don't even know what it is, but it's a $18 lightning arrestor. It's not a Workman, but it looks like that. Then right next to it are a pair of Workman lightning arresters. Diamond Antenna has a $40 lightning arrestor. So, I mean, the ProxyCast have been expensive lately, like in the $100 a piece range. and right here's one for $109. So that's interesting. But there are some options out there. Buyer beware. You know, it's a get what you pay for kind of a world. My $30 lightning arresters haven't arrived yet, and who knows what's going to be in the box when it does. Maybe I got ripped off. I don't know yet.
Or maybe it works beautifully.
Could be. I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that somebody had 5 of these lightning arresters left, and they just wanted rid of them. And they knew what they paid for them back in the day. So hopefully that's what happens. I was also looking at the DB420 antennas, right?
Okay, yeah.
Which is what we use mostly on North Georgia GMRS. All of our newer installations are exclusively DB420s, and that's the only thing that we're buying these days to put on the tower. And I've seen them priced from between $5,500. Holy cow!
Okay.
All the way down to $1,200.
Huh. That's a big gap.
It's a big gap for the same antenna. So some places have the antenna and they know it's a very valuable antenna and they're going to die with that antenna because nobody's going to pay that much. I think $1,200 to $2,200 is the going rate. I think by the time you get an antenna shipped to you, what we've seen with North Georgia GMRS is we're in the $2,500 range to buy the antenna and to pay for the shipping. It doesn't fit in any box that Amazon has. It doesn't fit. You can't ship it UPS. All right, you're going to ship it light freight is the only option that you have, and that's not cheap. So you're going to spend a pretty penny on shipping to get the antenna. If you can have, you know, somebody like HRO or DX DX Radio, if you can get them to order it and then go pick it up and save on that shipping, that would be the way to go, because the shipping is what kills you on these antennas. But you know, that antenna is 20 feet long.
Wow. And I'm pretty sure it's like really sturdy as well.
Oh, they are. I mean, it's a big, solid piece of heavy-walled aluminum pipe, and it's built in such a way that it comes apart into 2 pieces, and when you assemble that, it kind of rotates in and locks into a position so that there's no chance of assembling it incorrectly. And then you put the clamps on that, and that becomes a unit at that point. But that's a solid piece of metal. So if it ever takes a lightning hit, it's going to pass all of its energy right straight down to the mast that it's attached to. So that's a great option, but the DB420 is not for the faint at heart, and it's not an antenna that we need on our systems at home. We can get by with a Comet, the 712, or the other Comet. We'd have to look at Gary's website to see, but yeah, there's $47.85 for that one right there.
Wow. And
that's a $450 to $470 if you want to drag that over and put that on the screen for people to see. But yeah, that's not a and that's the antenna farm. We all know who they are. So the antenna farm up in Blairsville is closed, but I believe the one that's in whatever state that is still open. But that's what that antenna. That's what you're going to pay at a lot of places for that antenna. That's not what we'll pay for. We'll buy it better than that if we're going to buy an antenna. But they're just not cheap. Let's break. So we have a YouTube question from David in Gainesville, Gainesville 43. For bonding, what if your house ground is on the other side of the house, 100 plus feet away? So there's a couple of different ways that you can approach that. And I think the best way to do that is run a wire around your house. You don't necessarily have to run the wire through the house. If you can dig a shallow trench, 8 inches or a foot deep, and run some solid copper wire around the house, run number 4 or number 6 gauge wire, you can bond your 2 grounding systems together. If that's too much for you to do, then at a minimum, find the nearest electrical box that your equipment is plugged into, and tap into the ground wire in that box and bond that wire into the grounding system for your antenna system. That's not something I would really recommend, but I'm going to say that something here is better than nothing. As long as we have a low impedance path to ground from our antenna system, that's first and foremost. If we take any kind of a strike, or if we have to dissipate any static electricity, then we want a low impedance path, the shortest possible path to ground. But the other thing that we want to do is we want to achieve the same ground potential on every grounding system that's associated with that. So if you have a ground rod or a series of ground rods at your tower, and then you have some distance between the tower and your shack, you're going to want some ground rods at your tower, and you're going to want at least one more at the shack, and you're going to want all those rods bonded together. And you're going to want all that system bonded together with your house system as well. So ideally, you're going to go back to the main ground rod for your house, and you're going to slip a clamp and a wire in on that rod, and you're going to bond that rod to the new rods that you drive for your ground system. If it's 100 feet away, buy a 100-foot piece of wire. I know we're talking about a couple $100 here, but that's the right way to do it. If you can't do that, if you can't make that happen, make an incremental improvement, and just bond to your house's electrical system wherever you can reach it, and at least achieve some level of protection there, so that we don't create that situation where we have different potentials across different sides of the house. Just understand that if you're using a very small conductor at any point in your grounding system, that becomes a high impedance path, and that may not offer the protection that you want. I think something is better than nothing, but just bear in mind that if we don't do things the right way, we might get bit. Let's break. Very good question. Thanks for bringing that. Let's continue on in the roster, and let's see. I've lost my roster. Here it is. Looks like after Bobby, we have McDonough 7-1. Andrew, we had a rough copy on you, Andrew, but if you've got a question for the net, we'd love to hear it. Try that thing again where we can modulate through the noise, nice and loud in your microphone. Andrew, are you there?
Yeah, this is McDonough 7-1, Drew. How copy?
Got some noise in there with you, but you're over the top of it as long as you modulate the way that you are.
That. Yeah, I'm new to North Georgia GMRS down here in McDonough. I'm talking to you now on a rugged 5-watt handheld. So just listening, no questions, listening and learning a whole lot over the last few months. Thank you.
Very good. Glad to have you along, and glad we finally got you in here after several attempts. And looks like you're also monitoring along on the YouTube. So thanks for helping out with that. I'm glad to have the viewers there on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're there on YouTube. Thumbs up helps. All of those things. All the comments in the chat show engagement with the show, and all that helps to drive YouTube's algorithm, and it just makes us look good. It's a super small channel. I mean, let's be honest. How many viewers do we have at the moment? 100.
110 views on this episode so far.
So, I mean, we're not talking big numbers here, but if enough of you show interest and share this with your friends, and maybe at some point the YouTube channel will grow and become something. We're just trying to do the best we can with what we have, and
well, our Facebook page is growing. Every week we're almost at, I think, 3,000 members now on Facebook. Yeah. So, we're getting some traction.
There's plenty of action going on in Facebook, so that's for sure. And that's also a great place. If you've got questions, that's a great place to get information about all things GMRS. So you can ask questions of the most basic nature. You won't get barked at. You won't get belittled. Remarkably enough, there's very, very little moderation that occurs in that channel. There's, I might not approve your post, Gary might not approve your post, but we don't go in and take stuff down very often. I think I could probably count on one hand the times that we've gone in and taken posts down or dealt with people and had them removed. It's a very small number, and it's very infrequent. So ask questions there. You'll get good, solid answers from people that really want to help you learn and build the best station that you can build. So great questions. Another question is along that 100-foot length of ground to get from one side of the house to the other, should he drive additional ground rods along that 100-foot length? Absolutely. So I would have to look it up because I don't remember what the numbers are. But there's a ratio. That's not a ratio. There's a footage. There's a value of what your ground rod is capable of in terms of dissipating energy. All right. So if you put two ground rods very close together, they're going to share the earth in terms of what they can dissipate. So those two ground rods are going to have less capacity to dissipate energy if they're close together than they would have if they are a distance apart. And I believe that distance is roughly twice the length of a ground rod. So if you're using 8-foot ground rods, you can set your ground rods about 16 feet apart. And by doing that, each of your ground rods will be able to dissipate an equal amount of energy into the earth. Let me break. So by doing that, by installing additional ground rods through the length of that cable, you can lower your impedance to ground because you have more ability to transfer that energy into the earth through that line. And to make that the most effective, you want to use the largest conductor that you can afford to buy. You want to use at least a 4-gauge conductor, larger if you can afford it, and create a very low impedance path to be able to make the best use of all of those ground rods and be able to have all that energy dissipated into the earth. And that's the other thing. If we just drive one ground rod, we could have a situation where we have more energy that has come down our system than that one ground rod is able to dissipate. And if that's the case, it's not the least resistance, right? We often hear electricity seeks the least resistance path to ground. That's actually not true. Electricity seeks all paths to ground. Okay? Every path. And your radio is going to be one of those paths. What we want to achieve is lower impedance, lower resistance to ground outside of your radio than inside the radio. And if we can do that, then we can protect your radio from a strike. And that's what all this equipment is about, is to have a station where you can operate in any weather condition without concern and be confident that you have enough of a grounding system out there that if you take a hit, your radio is not going to be part of that path. Or the amount of energy that is a part of that path is a small enough amount that your radio can deal with it.
And that's the one thing too is, I'd rather buy another coax than buy another radio. So that keeps your costs down as well, protecting the radio.
And there again, that's another incremental step towards improving your station. If you're using a low quality or a inadequate coax, that could be the next investment that you make to make an incremental improvement to your station. Whether grounding, these are all decisions that we have to make, but they're also all opportunities that virtually all of us have to make improvements to our stations. So that's great observation. Let's go next to Atlanta 250. Dana, high atop Mount Olympus. I doubt that Dana ever sees any lightning at Mount Olympus. It's unlikely there's ever any lightning over there. What do you think, Dana?
It's probably Christmas up there.
Well, first of all, and as always, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rogers. You guys are doing a superb job, even though you're -2 this evening. So let me reset. Well, no. There's a lot of lightning up here, but the good thing that saves me most of the time is I have hundreds of trees that are much taller than my antennas. And they surround about 3/4 of my house. So, if anything is going to strike, they're going to 90% of the time hit the trees before it comes over to me. Let me reset. That being said, if I'm home, I do unplug all 7 radios. I do want to come up with a grounding bus, per se, that makes unplugging a little bit easier, maybe down at the floorboard and to the outside of the house, and then that way all I have to do is quick disconnect. Let me break. But I have 7 antennas, so unplugging 7 different antennas to the radios, well, put it this way, if you wait till the lightning starts flashing, you might be taking your life in your hands while you do it. So, if you're home, keep an eye on the weather, what's going on, what's coming. We always do because of Skywarn, of course, and Ronnie and I confer a lot, so I know what to put on with the ESM. So, all of my antennas are grounded individually. Let me break. On 5 of my antennas, I do have those gas-filled lightning arresters, Justin, that you made mention of, and there is no way to tell if they've been popped or not. So I guess it's just if your radio stops working, and by process of elimination, you can finally rule that out. Yeah, there's Noodles Magoo right there on the tube. So let me break. I'm sitting here talking to y'all with my eyes shut so I can follow a train of thought. And when I just peeped open my eyes for a second, what do I see? Magoo here. Well, hey, you guys blew my train of thought now. Now I don't know what I'm saying, so I'll turn it back to you.
Well, Rogers is over here doing a quality audit, and he's only seeing 6 radios in that picture. So, where is number 7?
It is an older picture. There is all the way to the left sits another 10-meter radio. I picked up a one made by Stryker, and well, that's a whole different conversation. Anyway, that makes the 7th. And as far as the 7th antennas, well, of course, 1 for each. I do have a Yagi that I'm getting ready to put up, and that'll be, well, number 8, but that's going to be on an AB switch.
Once upon a time, when Studio B was basically a bedroom, a spare bedroom in a house. I've been kicked out of the house, but back in those days, I had a 2-meter radio and a GMRS radio. Actually, there were 2 GMRS radios, but we really only ever used one at a time. So we were set up to switch between them pretty quickly. But the 2-meter radio, in the same room, really at the same desk, man, the biggest challenge in my life at that point in time was which microphone to pick up. Because invariably, I would pick up the wrong mic and I would answer a call on the wrong band with the wrong call sign on the wrong band. And, here Noodles Magoo has 13 radios on his desk and 27 microphones and 400 antennas. I've seen pictures of the house. It's not just 7 or 8 antennas. He's got a massive antenna farm out there. That was your house, was it not, Dana?
You're talking about the one that Gary posted, and no, that's not really my house. But and you know what's good about it is you pull up to the house, you really can't see a whole lot of them until you start looking, and then you do see them peeking up over top of the roof. But yeah, I have a second floor balcony. They all, and of course, being a log home, everything is super hardy as far as railings and everything else, 6x6s, and let me break. So, you know, a lot of these mats start on the second floor, and the only thing that goes to the ground is the ground. You know, I have braided wire that, you know, connects them all together, and 3 grounding rods for pretty much all of the antennas that I mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, everything could be improved, don't get me wrong. I can't say as I was doing all of this, you know, did I actually know what I was doing? But when you do find out, you make changes, you learn as you go along, and hopefully no lightning strikes in between. Back to you guys.
Very good stuff. And, you know, lightning protection is, you know, it's a very important thing. But like you said, the gas tube, the $20 lightning arresters, the $15 lightning arresters, you know, they may not offer the same level of protection, but you got to start somewhere, right? I'd rather see somebody put an inexpensive lightning arrestor in than nothing at all. But we do need to understand that it's a get what you pay for world, and performance costs money. So with that being the case, we want to be sure that that we're aware of that, and that we make improvements, you know, to our lightning protection as we're able to. And that's like I say, the most important thing is to get on the air. All right. Once we're on the air, then we start doing all these other things. So I don't want anybody to feel like, oh my golly, I've got to go spend another $100. Well, yeah, you do, but not necessarily today. I mean, work your way towards that, and there may be other purchases that you want to or need to make before you do that. But just, you know, it's part of the hobby. It's part of the interest in radio, and the more radios they have, the more lightning arresters you need, and then you get into things like ground buses and antenna switches, and yeah.
But I think the main thing is just having the awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing that, hey, something could happen, or, okay, you know, we could have a storm coming through. Let me unplug, or,
right,
you know, let me set up a temporary setup, you know, like how Bobby said. So, you know, there are ways to kind of get around it, or kind of to make it happen without, you know, going all out.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I see in every commercial radio station that I've been in, most of these are railroad sites, but not all of them. Some of them are county emergency services sites. Some of them are commercial FM radio stations. In every one of these transmitter rooms, at the base of a tower, you're going to find a halo, a copper ring at the top of the room. And you're going to find a matching copper ring at the base of the room that's grounded at multiple points as it goes around the room. Those rings, the halo and the baseboard ring, are bonded together every several feet along the wall. These are things that are not really practical to do in your house. You know, in the room that Dana has on his second floor off the balcony there, we're not gonna hang a loop of copper wire at the top of the wall. I mean, it's going to look ridiculous. We're just not going to do that. And for those of us with wives, that's just not even going to be permitted, even if it's a spare bedroom. That's not going to happen. But you do the best you can, right? You do as much as you can, and maybe you can lay a wire on the floor around that room. And if you can't get a halo around the top of the room, maybe you can get a ring of wire at or under your desk. And one of the things that I've used in the past is I've gone directly under the surface of the desk, and I've installed some of that copper plumber's hanging tape. Do you know what I'm talking about with the holes in it?
I think I've seen that before.
So
Yeah.
if you can buy the copper, it's not really copper. It's copper clad. But if you buy that, you can screw that, you can nail that, you can attach that to the underside of your desk, and you can create a ground ring right there where your equipment is, and you run a ground wire from that out to your ground rod, and you do that in two different places, right? So you hit the left side of your desk towards the back, you hit the right side of the desk towards the front. You have two connections that go out, shortest path possible to the ground rods. They don't touch each other until they're at the ground rod. All right, now you have a loop, you have a ring of ground there, and you can provide an environment that will help your radio equipment survive a direct hit. So that's one more thing that you can do to put that ring around your desk. You're gonna have $20-$30 in that copper tape, as opposed to buying a 2-inch foil copper to put up around the entirety of the room. You might have a few $100 in trying to do that, and then your wife's going to make you take it down. So unless you can install that and put some of that wallpaper, what do they call that? The thin stuff, the banner stuff that you can put in. It's a wallpaper product. If you put that over the copper, you might be able to get away with it.
Like a wall splash or something like
It's
that?
not a splash. It's like a strip. It's like an accent that you can do. Instead of wallpapering the whole wall, you can just wallpaper the top 6 inches. Anyway, you might be able to cover up the copper with that and get away with it. But you still need to bond the top halo with the baseboard ring every several feet. I'd have to go look at the R56 specification to see what those numbers are, but that is a thing that I see in those stations. So we haven't done that here in Vanguard. Vanguard is wrapped in aluminum, so it's kind of its own Faraday cage. And if you bring a cell phone into Vanguard, it shows 1 bar at the moment, but it usually will say SOS. The only reason the phone works in here at all is because it sees Wi-Fi. We do have a Wi-Fi access point inside Vanguard. Let's break. All right, then. We probably timed out on some of the repeaters, but did we say anything that anybody really... You can watch YouTube if you really want to know what you missed.
Yeah, we have to play back.
Yeah.
And we need some more viewers anyway. So,
that's right.
Subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
So maybe I should just hit the timeout timer on purpose. What do you think?
Just blow right past it.
Yeah. No, we're trying here, but a lot of stuff to cover. All right, Dana, did you have anything else before we move on?
Yeah, I'm sending you a new picture to use. Oh, gosh, that one's awful. All right, back to you.
All right, I'll see if I can get that new picture in the mix-up here very soon. I like this picture. I think it's a good picture. You can't see your eyes, but I've stood right in front of you and not been able to see your eyes. So I don't know that the picture really makes any difference. Well,
I mean,
it looks
maybe
fine
he
to
wants
me.
a different background or something. Or,
yeah.
Well,
I saw briefly the picture that he sent, and it's a good picture. He also sent a nice picture of Bobby. I'm surprised that such a thing exists, but in any case, yeah, I'll see if I can get these added in here. Look at that. There's a picture of Bobby.
Oh,
that's
okay.
good, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good picture.
Yeah. So I can't take it off the phone. I'll have to. It works better if it comes to me from an email. Yeah.
Little preview.
Yeah,
preview
there you go.
on YouTube.
We got a great picture of you, Bobby. We'll start using that. All right. Next in the roster is McDonough 22 Tim in Stockbridge. Tim, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Well, good evening, gentlemen. I guess I don't really have much to add tonight. I'm one of the lucky ones that got a mobile antenna sitting over here on a piece of sheet metal in the corner, so I don't need any of this hyperphernalia that y'all are talking about tonight. So I probably should have just checked in and out, but it's interesting conversation, and I'm listening on the side, so I'll just throw it back to net control. Thank you.
Very good, Tim, and hopefully you're picking up all of this. We know that not every repeater drops out when that timeout timer hits, but we haven't been able to figure out which ones it is and what exactly the time is. Mike says he thinks it's at 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Did I see that in a text tonight?
Yeah, 3:37 or either 3:17. I forgot.
Yeah, maybe it's a dynamic number too. I'm not entirely sure, but when the RC value equals whatever voltage and time, then out we go. So very good. Glad to have you along tonight, Tim. It's always great to have you in the mix. Next we have Gainesville 113 Keith in Buford. Keith, what do you have for us tonight?
Yeah, good conversation. Yeah, I have 5 antennas coming in, and all of those are grounded and bonded. The only thing I don't have is my equipment grounded. And I think you may have touched on it when you talked about the right side and the left side of the desk. That kind of made sense. But should I be concerned about grounding the equipment, and should I be concerned about reflective power?
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons why we want to ground the equipment, right? And it's not always. You look at the back of a radio. There's not always a spot on a radio that says, "Oh, I should put a ground there," right? Some of the heat sinks on a couple of the Kenwood radios that I have like a little threaded, like an M4 threaded socket in them, a hole in them, that you can stick a small screw in. And I have done just that. I've run a screw into that through an eye with a piece of braided copper and run that from the back of the radio right to the ground loop that's underneath the desk. All right, so if you take that copper tape that we talked about, and you attach that to the bottom side of your desk all the way around, so it forms a continuous loop. And then you attach in 2 places to that copper ring ground wire. And it can be on the front of the desk and the back of the desk. It can be left side, right side, forward, one on the forward, one toward the rear. Maybe they're both in the middle. It doesn't matter. You just want 2 ground paths off of that desk down to your ground rod. 2 ground rods would be even better. And remember, you have to bond your ground rods, right? So it's not enough to have your ground rods bonded through your desk. You want a low impedance bond between your rods. So you're going to have those connections come down to your ground rods. Then you're going to bond your ground rods together so that they have a low impedance path to one another and that they can be at the same potential. But part of why we want to ground our radios is so that if any energy makes it past our lightning arresters, then we still have a low impedance path to ground outside of through the chassis of the radio. All right, so most of the energy that comes in is going to come in on a shield. Most of it is, not all of it. Most of it is going to come in on a shield. So if we can redirect that through a low impedance path back to ground, we can save our radio. If we don't have that ground and the radio is just kind of floating there, then it's any energy that enters your radio is going to seek a path to ground. And as I mentioned, it's not the lowest resistance path to ground, it's every path. Electricity is going to take every path to ground that it can find, and we want to make sure that the amount of energy that travels through the circuits in the radio is as low as possible. So I definitely recommend that we put grounds on the backs of those radios and get them to that loop under your desk. And if you don't have that loop under your desk, that's okay. Just get them outside to a ground rod in the shortest, lowest impedance path that you can make. So use the heaviest gauge wire you can afford to buy. And if you buy 10 gauge or 8 gauge wire to make that connection, you can always come back in a year or 2 and upgrade that to 4 gauge. So we don't have to achieve perfection first time around. Let's break. We can work ourselves, to that over time, and as we make more money and have more, we trade and we swap and we bargain and barter, and maybe you come across some heavy gauge wire that you can use for that. So just things to be on the lookout for, and things that you can work towards. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah, I appreciate that. The last question I would have is, does that grounding have any effect on the transmit signal?
Well, so, yeah, sort of, kind of. I mean, I'm going to say yes, but I don't know how to tell you how you're going to measure or how you're going to discern that difference, right? So, and it also depends on frequency. So if we're talking about UHF, you're going to have a tough time seeing a difference in performance with a well-grounded radio versus one that's not grounded at all. The effect of grounding for the propagation of your signal is so that's a separate thing, really. All right, we're talking about, in essence, a counterpoise. So the counterpoise is really the plane that your reflector, that your radiating element is working off of, or is countering. So the counterpoise can be, just the shielding in your coax can be the counterpoise that you need to be able to have a countering effect on your antenna's propagation. I'm not describing this well. I'm trying to remember some of the words that I've read, and I have it in my mind what I'm trying to say. I just can't put the words together. But so grounding doesn't diminish that, and at high frequencies it doesn't really even necessarily improve that. But what grounding does is it offers protection to your radio. When we get into lower frequencies, and we get into HF, and particularly when we get into amplitude modulation, now we're dealing with a whole different kind of propagation, and that grounding starts to become a lot more important. And so what you'll find at an AM radio station, and actually we often find this at microwave sites and at FM stations too, but you'll find a network of a grounding system around that tower that radiates from around the building and the tower with a series of ground rods on conductors every X number of feet, radiating out in all directions, and so you have a sort of a grounded mat. So everything is bonded together. Each ring is bonded. Each leg is bonded. So each ground rod has typically 3 or 4 copper connections to it. Oftentimes at these radio stations, they're CAD welded, or they have a particular clamp that goes on the top of a ground rod. Let's break. But so, like I say, when we get into amplitude modulation, or we get into HF frequencies, that grounding becomes far more important in terms of being a counterpoise to your antenna system. So you get into end-fed antennas, or you get into some of the dipoles. The dipole itself becomes its own counterpoise, so that's not so much an issue. But depending on what kind of an antenna system you're using, if you're using a straight-up dipole, a vertical dipole, then that grounding system becomes far more important. So the answer is basically yes, but, and the but is addressing all of the potential variables. And like I say, the higher the frequency, the less impact having a good ground system is going to have on propagation, but it still has an important function in terms of safety.
I appreciate that. I thank you for your wisdom. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for the question. It was good stuff. Let's continue on. That was Gainesville 113 Keith. And next we have Atlanta 849, Pamela in Duluth. Pamela, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Well, gentlemen, I thank you for having this subject quite interesting. I don't know that I understand all of it, but got another person that can explain things to me. But, you know, I want to say first that I did enjoy Todd's announcements, and he did a good job. What I want to say is I like how he did the emphasis on some of the details that some of us put in that we created in our announcements. So I think he did really good. But also, I want to say I'm glad to hear Chat 260 come in to talk tonight, because I recently spoke with him on the radio. Let me break. All right. Now, to help solve Dana's issue and maybe some other people's issue, to disconnect, this is what Ernest came up for me, because I have a hard time disconnecting the coaxial. So, from the switch. Anyway, this is called a barrel type double circuit coax disconnect switch. That was a barrel type double circuit coax disconnect switch. It's around $80-$90. That will help somebody if you need help with that. And if you want to comment, I'll hold on with my other comments.
All right. So, did you find a picture of that?
Yeah.
Of the disconnect? Is that the one that shunts to ground when you can choose A, B, or ground?
I think so. I put it switch, but maybe.
Yeah. So those are some good switches. My search came up with garbage, electrical panel stuff, but yeah. So that's one way to go. Certainly is to disconnect your station, but if you're using a switch of that nature, you're not going to be able to disconnect your ground. Typically, those switches will have a metal chassis, and that's often to limit the amount of noise that can get in. To interfere with the signal. So those boxes are basically metal on the outside, and so even though you're breaking the circuit to the receiver on the interconductor, you're still providing a path to the radio through the coaxial shield. And so even if you've done this, even if that switch is offering a ground shunt within it, it's all a matter of impedance and what is the lowest impedance path to ground. And as long as your radio is in that circuit, then you could potentially provide a lower impedance path to ground through the radio and cause damage. So what I'm getting at is, before I would spend $90 on a switch, I would spend $90 on a polyphaser lightning arrestor and make sure that it's well grounded and just do things properly. And if you do that, then you have a situation, if your station is well grounded, you don't have to worry about shutting the antenna off during a storm. You don't need to disconnect or isolate. You can operate through the storm. And in my mind, that's an important function, because if you disconnect during the storm, then you can't be made aware of anybody nearby that is suffering an emergency. And if you have a catastrophe, you don't have a radio system that you can reach out and make contact with, because you've isolated your antenna system to protect your radio. So rather than spend the money on a switch, I would just as soon see people spend that money on a polyphaser and be prepared to operate through the storm. Isolating from the storm, if you're gonna physically disconnect your cable and lay it on the ground away from your radio, that may offer some protection. But I'll tell you, even if you've done this, if your antenna system takes a strike, you have a path into your home now. I think we have people that have experienced that that might even be listening tonight that would tell you that might not be the best idea. Disconnecting from the radio still provides that electrical path into your home. And, you know, in one case, I don't think the energy even came inside the house. I think the fire started in the attic, and I think it might have been related to the fascia or the gutter. So in some cases, there's nothing you're going to do that's going to eliminate the possibility, because in Houston's case, that fire had nothing to do with his radio equipment, nothing whatsoever to do with his radio system. That energy entered his house a different way. The radios were not at fault, but nonetheless, I would want to build my system in such a way that I could feel confident in operating regardless of the weather outside. And that if I needed to monitor the radio during a storm, and I'll tell you, monitoring a 2-meter radio during their Skywarn events, when there's tornadoes in the area, there is so much information that you can glean from what's really going on that happens 10 minutes later on WSB.
Well, so yeah, you get everything first.
Not only do you get it first, you're getting it from the eyewitness live on the scene. Before WSB can talk about it, before they can put it on the air, it has to be corroborated.
Yeah.
So there has to be a second source to be able to confirm that information. You're hearing it from the eyewitness when you're monitoring those nets. And if you're disconnecting your antenna systems because of the storm, you're disconnecting your ability to be able to have that awareness. I highly recommend that you spend your money instead on a lightning arrestor rather than a switch. The polyphaser they're expensive. Let's break. But I keep going back to that because that's the device that I see at every commercial installation that I've been to. I have seen some other brands, but the polyphaser is there every time. And it's one that industry has relied upon. It's a standard, and it's attainable. It's not like it's so expensive that we could never afford one. So I really recommend that we move away from the switches, unless you're just using that to switch between antennas. That's what that tool is for. And even though that some of those have the center detent where they'll switch to ground, I don't rely on that because you've still provided a path. You still need to have lightning arresters in those circuits to protect your radios. So, did you have any other questions, Pamela? All right, not hearing anything from Pamela. I'm going to see if I can go to whoever's next on the log here. I can't see it from here, so let me scoot over here, and I got to grab this other mouse, and I got to scroll. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Why can't I just saw it click. There it is. There we go. So next on our list is Colt, Chattanooga 260 Colt in Dalton. Colt, did you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Negative, sir. I'm happy to listen and hear all these great input. This is Chattanooga 260 WDSM 4.4. Clear, sir.
Comment.
All right, Colt, to understand you're just monitoring tonight, so glad to have you along. And heard the comment in there. Typically, we take comments at the end so that we can get through the people that have checked in. So if you'll hold your comment, we'll come to you definitely before we close the net tonight. And we're getting close. There's not that many that are left. Next on our list is Atlanta 870 Dale. Dale, did you have any questions or comments for tonight's net? All right, nothing from Dale. We're going to go ahead and show her as in and out and move next to Atlanta 911, Cassandra in Kennesaw. Cassandra, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net? All right, comment. You're up next. Go ahead and identify and come on with your question.
Yeah, Justin, net control. It's just Tim, McDonald 22, WRCR 952. I'm just going to let you know that the McDonald repeater is one that you've been timing out on all night long. Just about every couple of minutes or so, you'll cut out and be silent for about a full minute to a minute and a half.
All right, Tim, that's good to know, and I hate that that's happening to you. Are you able to monitor on the YouTube live stream and pick up the pieces that you're missing?
I'm sure I probably could. I just I didn't think about it. There's a delay on there, which usually, is kind of confusing because of the delay between the YouTube feed and the radio feed. And plus, I've been busy trying to set up a printer here with a new router that I had to install. So I've been a little busy while I was listening to y'all and doing other stuff at the same time. But it's all good. I mean, I caught most of everything. It's not a complaint. I just wanted to let you know.
All right, Tim, I appreciate that information. I don't know that we have a fix in play for that. I know it's something that John has spent a lot of time trying to isolate which repeaters are suffering from that, and it's something that we've just always dealt with. I don't have free salad sitting here beside me to tell me I got a break, so we're definitely missing our cues here. But that's hopefully if there's anything that you need to know about that we're talking about, you can go back and replay the YouTube live stream and pick up on any information that you may have missed. All right, we're going to try one more time. Atlanta 911 says that she's back to her radio. So one more time for Atlanta 911. All right, nice and loud into that microphone. Not sure what's going on, but there's some kind of a popping noise that was coming in with you. But I think if you can get nice and loud into that microphone, you can get over it. Do you have any questions for tonight's net? We're talking about antennas, bonding, and grounding.
Hopefully this is better. Is that better, Justin?
Yeah, that's great signal there. So that'll do nicely.
Okay, I just have to hold my plug into the mic because I don't know why. But anyways, I don't have any questions. I just need, well, I guess the only question is when are you going to come over and do my antenna? I don't know if I need one. I don't get on the radio much, but you keep telling me I do. So I leave it up to you. You just tell me what I need to do, and then typically you come over and do it. I'm a little spoiled that way.
It's a tower.
Yeah, I think a 50-foot roan would do nicely right there, and that would allow for other radio activities too. For instance, I think your location would be prime for a Meshtastic node, and a 50-foot tower would help the Meshtastic community tremendously. So, yeah, we could do that, or we could probably put a couple of pieces of pipe on the side of the house and get an antenna just high enough to get over the roof in the neighbors' houses, and get you into the flagship machine quite nicely. I'm not sure how well you would be able to do on Fort Mountain from there. And I have a feeling that radio doesn't have Fort Mountain programmed into it, so we would have to make some updates on the radio as well. But yeah, I think $100 for some new heliacs, a lightning arrestor, and a couple pieces of pipe. Yeah, maybe $200 by the time we put the lightning arrestor in there. Would probably be about as much as we would need to do to get your station in top notch. And we can take a look at that microphone cord while we're at it. Maybe it needs a new end, or maybe it needs a new beginning. Might have to install a new beginning on that microphone. You're agreeing with me, like you know what I'm talking about.
No, I'm listening.
All right, all right. Well then what do you think? You ready to do it?
I think it's not the end or the beginning. I think it's the handler. I've replaced this cord like 3 times, but I think it's just far enough away from the base where I sit that every time I use it, I pull it a little bit, and it's not going much further. So I don't know. Maybe we need to start and look at that. I'm getting some 80-foot trees removed from the backyard, so not sure I want a 50-foot tower, but we can talk. And then the other thing is maybe I need to take my handheld, if I ever find it, and see if it works in Alaska when I go this summer.
Well, I'm certain it will work. I just don't know who is using GMRS in Alaska. Do you know if there's any repeaters in Alaska?
Ooh, I can check right quick and see.
No, we could look at my GMRS and we could get a listing for Alaska and find out how many repeaters are up there, where they are. That's pretty easy to do. Just go to mygmrs.com, and if it wants you, I think that it kind of forces you into having an account there. The account is free. You just plug in your information, and once you have an account with mygmrs.com, it'll let you search for repeaters in various states.
You can search without. I'm in right now.
Yeah, because you're
signed in.
Right, but it's probably signed in under my. No. Well, it lets you search states though.
Well, I pulled up the map and I see Alaska here, and I'm clicking on it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
You're a little limited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but there are 3 in Alaska somewhere.
3 of them somewhere.
Three repeaters.
Yeah. So you may be able to, if you can find a bear with a GMRS license, you may be able to communicate with the bears. I would imagine GMRS would be handy for a number of people in that region because, you know, it offers more power than CB, and it allows people to use two-way radio without having to pass an amateur radio test. So probably amateur radio is more prevalent because you can install higher power radios and be able to maybe talk at greater distances. I don't know that there's much of a repeater network in Alaska, but you know, with repeaters we can cover greater distances than sometimes you can with ham, unless we're talking HF. But it looks like there are a few, so you may have some access there. Are you traveling with other GMRS users?
I don't believe either one of them have it, but I can check with them. They're both used to growing up in the rural area, Alaska and Colorado, so they very well may, but I'll check with them tonight, and I'll connect with you one day next week. Just let me know your schedule, and we can discuss further.
Well, you know, that offers an interesting thought, at least in my mind, is that if you got your friends to get their GMRS license and they carried a GMRS radio in Alaska while you guys are doing various things, you may be able to stay in contact by way of simplex. But before you take your radio, you need to check with the cruise line and every place that you're going to be and see if there's any prohibition with radios. I understand that some cruise lines do not allow radios on their ship at all. So alternatively, I'm aware that FRS radios are really, really common on cruise ships. So I think it depends on the line and maybe its route. And, if you're in international waters, FRS is going to be just fine. But if you're tied up at a pier in the Bahamas, in the Dominican, in another country, you could be in violation if you're using FRS radios of their local radio laws and restrictions. So a lot of things come into play. Alaska is one of our states, but I don't know enough about rules and restrictions for FRS and GMRS in Alaska to know if there's any concern there. But I would definitely check with your cruise line before you try to board with radios. You may end up having to put them in a locker.
So here's a common error, Justin. I am not going on a cruise. I'm going to stay with friends in Alaska. I've got a rental car, and we are pretty much all ground except for like a fishing charter, etc., that we're going to go out on. So they could always stay in my rental car because I've got it for 2.5 weeks.
Has the rental company seen you drive?
Do you want to see me drive on the off-road vehicle that we've got as well?
I'm going to stay here, thanks. Well, in that case, you should be fine. The radios in the vehicle should be fine. I would be cautious about trying to use them at any point along the way while you're in Canada. But as long as you're in the U.S., I think you'd be okay with them. But you should probably do a little bit of research to make sure that there's no prohibition against. I think in Canada, there are some GMRS frequencies we're not supposed to use. I don't remember which ones they are, but there's like the A zone that if you're within 12 miles or 15 miles of the border, there's 2 or 3 channels that we can't use. Do you remember what those are?
Well, I'm looking here, and it says, per Google, in Canada, GMRS radios are allowed for use also without a license, but there are some restrictions. So handheld GMRS radios, typically dual FRS and GMRS units, can operate up to 2 watts on certain GMRS channels. So yeah, you're right. You do have to check and make sure that you're not interfering.
Yeah, so you can't use your 5-watt high power settings. You'll have to make sure everything is in low power limits at 2 watts, and that really limits your simplex range as well. So if you can see them, you can talk to them, most likely. But if they are behind anything, around anything, or over the hill, you're probably not going to be able to talk to them at that low of a power setting. So they may be very limited in their usefulness. But it'd be interesting to see if you could make contact with anyone while you're there. Pull the radio out from time to time, throw out your call sign, and see if anybody will answer. Hopefully it's not the Canadian FCC that answers.
Yeah, because they do have quite a few restrictions and requirements here that I'm reading, so definitely want to double check that.
Yeah, so I think there are some channels that we cannot use, and I don't remember which ones they are. It wouldn't be too hard to spend a little bit of time looking through Google to find out which channels you have to stay off of. But I think as long as you followed, their rules, you should be fine. And it's not just in Canada. So those channels, you have to stay off of those channels, even if you're in the U.S. but you're near Canada. Now, I'm not sure how that plays from the Alaskan side of the Canadian border, but on the state side, I think that can become a pretty big deal. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and. Well, how do you drive to Alaska without going through Canada? You kind of have to go through Canada if you're driving, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know. Oh, she's flying. Okay. All right. Starting to make sense. Very little, but starting to. And Roger says I have to break. I think that whatever I'm saying right now, the people whose repeaters have cut out, they're fine not hearing me right now.
Comment.
All right. I heard that comment in there. We're going to go ahead and take one last call for any late check-ins, any additional check-ins. And let's see, before I do that, I've got a handful of YouTube check-ins that I want to acknowledge. I have Columbus 31 Don in Columbus on YouTube. The guest check-in from WRWZ961 Edwin in Rochester, New York. And we have a guest check-in from Atlanta 420 William in Roswell. Why is he a guest? Why not?
We welcome all guests.
Yeah. So, William, glad to have you hanging out with us on YouTube. Let's go ahead and take a break. We're gonna call for any late check-ins from any repeater anywhere. And while we're doing that, I'm going to take a look at these text messages that are blowing up my phone. Okay.
This is.
He says I have to log it.
This is WRQ G806, Atlanta 557, checking in late.
That William guy is like lifetime member number 5 or something.
So he started. I think he's. Or was it Edwin? It was guess.
All right, I heard Atlanta 557, Ed and Kennesaw checking in. I'll come to you here in just a moment, Ed. I think there was at least one. There might have been a couple of comments in there. So stations with comments, go ahead with your TAC number so we can get that listed here.
250.
849.
All right, so I've got a late check-in from Atlanta 557, Ed in Kennesaw, and I've got comments from Atlanta 250 and Atlanta 849. First, let's go to Ed. Ed, I'm sure you've heard the news, but just in case you didn't, what are your plans for Saturday?
Well, my original plans to go to Hamfest and talk about Meshtastic are dead in the water. So hopefully everybody has heard. I'm sure it was discussed during the first half. But I think I'm just going to spend Saturday with my lovely wife, and she was gracious enough to let me go. So I don't know, probably take her out for lunch or something. But great topic tonight. Appreciate it. Learned a lot of good things, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's disappointing, Ed. I was really looking forward to a chance to speak with people and talk about GMRS radio. I know there's a lot of question, in the greater community and radio community about how we do what we do and why we do what we do, and maybe we shouldn't do what we do, and I think we just do what we do until somebody tells us, the right way that we can't do that. And we haven't seen that yet. We've not seen any official correspondence from any official agency that would suggest or imply that anything we're doing is improper. And we believe, based on our analysis of the Part 95 rules, that we are in compliance with the exact same rules that we've been operating under since the beginning of linking. So at one point in time, there were documents from the FCC that specifically clarified that linking was allowed. Now, that's not a rule, but that is a document, and that document is just as valid as any other document that says that linking is not allowed unless it's a Part 95 rule. So we're operating under FCC Part 95 rules, and we'll continue to do so. If anybody out there feels like what we're doing is improper, I would invite you to take that question up with the FCC. I mean, and many people have. And I think there might be some confusion within the agency itself as to just what the rules say. But the bottom line is you can't enforce the FCC rules. Only the FCC can do that. And if you think what we're doing is improper, then please take that up with the FCC. And if they make contact with us, we will abide by the rules. We're probably going to challenge the rules. We're going to wait a minute here, time out. We're not just going to step down and say, oh, okay, game's over, we quit. We're going to challenge the rules, and we're going to make someone explain specifically and exactly how we once were not in violation, but now we are, because that needs to be very clearly understood. But if they can do that, and we have to change the way that we operate, we have some things in the works. We have some plans that we're developing to allow for us to be able to continue on in some fashion. So, and let's face it, at one time we were a non-linked repeater network, and we were the largest repeater group in the country then. Let's break. And so even if something comes about that forces us to drop our links, we're still the largest group of repeaters anywhere in the country. And many of our repeaters have a pretty impressive footprint with major coverage. So it may have it'll have a greater effect on our outliers, the people that are more distant from the North Georgia region. People in the South, how many people are operating on a Columbus repeater? There's just a handful. How many people are operating on the McDonough repeater? Maybe a dozen. So, some of these repeaters just have a few operators that are regular on that repeater. There may be several dozen on the McDonough repeater, but there's only a small portion of that are regular. Just like right here on the flagship repeater. All of the Atlanta region TAC numbers, and there are hundreds of them. Of all of that hundreds of Atlanta region TAC number users, how many are active on this repeater every day?
You hear more people probably monitoring versus actually talking.
And that would remain true even if the links were to drop. Mm-hmm. I think that if we were forced to drop our links, I think the activity on each individual repeater would diminish dramatically. And but nonetheless, each repeater will then become its own island, and you may have more opportunities to use the repeater unlinked than you do now, as it is linked. So, right now, I have no idea what the future holds. I have no expectation that we're going to stop linking, because no document has been provided that implies that we should change anything about what we do. Nothing has come in any official capacity. So we're going to continue doing what we do. And we're going to enjoy it. And we're going to have a great time with it. And we're going to take it as far as it can go. And while we're doing that, we're also looking at the future. And we're looking at what we can do to continue to make GMRS radio great. Not only for North Georgia GMRS, but for all GMRS users in the nation. So we're a leader in this field. Every one of you are leaders in GMRS users. We are shaping what GMRS will be for decades to come, and I applaud all of you for being a part of this, and I'm very proud of the group of people that I associate with, and I think that we're here for the long haul, and if we have to shape things a little bit differently, we'll deal with that when the time comes. Let's break. But that time's not here, so we'll keep on keeping on. Atlanta 250, you have comments?
Yeah, this is basically for Cassandra and her Alaskan trip. I had read a couple of different times, because as we all know, vehicle transportation, although is present there, bush pilots, there are many, many, many more bush pilots in Alaska than probably cars. And the bush pilots do use GMRS. So no doubt if she calls out for somebody, somebody is going to come back.
Very good stuff. I've also read somewhere that there's a major percentage of Alaskan bush pilots that don't engage in commercial services. They fly for themselves. That have never taken any kind of a class, course, or instruction, or have any sort of a license. They just fly. And
wow.
And because they're so remote, what are you going to do? Are you going to require somebody that has knowledge and experience and capability and has been doing it for years? Oh, you got to have this certificate from this government agency. What government agency? This is the middle of Alaska. How do you? No one is there to enforce it. No one is there to provide the class. No one is there, and so it is what it is.
And it's not like they're going to run into any tall buildings or anything, probably.
Right.
So,
but you're not going to see that in Anchorage.
Yeah. No, not there. Not there. Just the outskirts. Right,
yeah,
right.
That's,
the outskirts.
That's different. And according to the Alaskans, that's not even what Alaska is. So, but I think that Cassandra's going to have a great time when she goes. She's going to take a lot of pictures, and we're not going to see any of them because what she does is she takes thousands of pictures, and out of those thousands of pictures, dozens of them will be pictures that she wants to share with people, but she won't share any of them until she edits them, and she won't edit them until she gets around to it, and she's fresh out of those. And my phone just chimed, and I think it's her saying that that's right. Yeah, sure enough, that's what it is. Let me break and see if she has a comment. Atlanta 911.
You are so full of it.
So it is true. You won't edit any of the pictures when you get back, and therefore you won't share any of them. So we're not going to see. You could prove me wrong pretty easily. All you have to do is bring back the pictures and show them to us. But I'm pretty comfortable in my statement. So, all right then. Well, thank you for that, Dana. Atlanta 849. Did you have any comments?
Yes, sir. When you came back, when we were talking, I lost you for like 2 or 3 minutes. Didn't hear anything except for when you said, well, I guess Atlanta 849 doesn't have anything else to say. But I wanted to say that I need to give you some more information on that that switch. It's actually plastic material, okay? And he says that it is connected to a window panel, which is grounded, and he's got the electrical background, and he's got everything pretty much taken care of that I know of. But I just want to let you know it's plastic material around that. Also, the Cassandra, I just wanted to make sure I asked her and reminded her about coming on to the ladies' net on the Monday night. I have not heard her, and just want to extend the invitation to her. But other than that, it's been quite an interesting net. So I will turn it back over to y'all.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. I'll have to search that switch. I still don't know that it's anything that I can recommend. It really all boils down to the things that I've seen in commercial applications, firsthand in places that I've been and gone to, and the things that I've read in the R56, the Motorola document that is the industry standard for grounding. And I don't think you're going to find any barrel switches that are dual circuit isolating switches. I don't think you're going to find that in the R56 standard anywhere. But if it's there, somebody can certainly send me a PDF of the page that shows that. And but nonetheless, there is a proven standard for proper grounding. And anything that we do that doesn't get you closer to achieving that standard is just not something that I would recommend or suggest. And I might even suggest that if you're doing things that you think are going to protect your radio, but they don't meet that standard or they don't work in the direction of that standard, you could actually be creating more harm than good. So just something, something to bear in mind. Every commercial radio installation, every single one of them use the R56 standard. They just do. And there's a reason for that. It works. Nothing is going to protect against a direct strike. Nothing. You take a direct hit, you're going to suffer damage. But the R56 standard is a very good document, and you can Google it. You can go online and you can pull that document up. You can download a PDF, and you can read all 580 pages of it yourself and come to know what that is. I have not read all 580 pages. There's a lot of it that talks about stuff that is indirectly related to what we're doing here. You have to get 40, 50 pages into it to get to the stuff where it's actually talking about grounding. But it's a great document, and I wouldn't recommend anything that I didn't find within the pages of that document. And Atlanta 911 says, tell her thank you. But Mondays are pretty crazy for her, but she'll try to add it to her calendar. As if Monday's any different crazy than any other day of the week. But Atlanta 911 is the definition of crazy day. All right, then. With that, I think we're at the end of the roster and the end of the comments. So let me find that page. It should be right here. And I'm kind of impressed with how quickly I've been able to find the things that I've been able to find. But there's still stuff that I've not been able to find. But in any case, I'm going to say this concludes the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net tonight. We had a total of, what do we have? Looks like 71?
Yeah, 71.
I think we had 71. Well, the auditors may come back with a different number. But for this moment in time, we're going to call it 71 chickens, including myself. Net Control will now be returning the repeaters back to normal use. Everyone who signed in should sign out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, comments on the YouTube video shows engagement with the video and helps the channel grow. Tune in next week on any North Georgia GMRS linked repeater or on YouTube live stream. Well, what are we talking about next week? We're
going to be severely short-staffed next week.
We are going to be short-staffed next week. Next week is going to be a challenge. So next week we have on our calendar to talk about what are we missing here? We're missing that's why. Next week was going to be radio checks and network usage. So we're just going to talk about radio basics, basic protocols, etiquette on the air, that kind of stuff. So, but here's the deal. Next week may or may not happen. And if it does happen, there's probably not going to be a live stream? Or do you think there will be?
We'll see.
Right now, we only have, of the 4 regular staff for tonight's net, we only have 1 that's available for sure. So if we can get 2, then we may go ahead and run with things. Are you going to run the net if it's just you?
I don't know.
You could just do the radio and forget the live stream.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I would suggest. So it may be a very different show next week. And if this topic doesn't work for you, you come on and talk about anything. I mean, because that's what the rules are here.
As long as it's radio related.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about politics or religion.
Well, I don't really talk about that much anyway. So.
Well, I think you and I are going to have we're going to have a borderline political conversation coming up real soon, if we can make that work out. Rogers and I are going to have a conversation about Juneteenth coming up here in a couple of weeks.
I remember we talked about that a while back.
And I'm looking forward to that.
Wow, that came around kind of quickly.
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did. So, Juneteenth for me I didn't understand what the holiday was, because at the time that it became, nationalized, there was so much political junk going on that I thought, okay, this is just a holiday that's made up for all the political garbage that's going on. I didn't know the real deal behind Juneteenth. And now that someone has sat me down and said, look, you're being a jerk, and it was, it really is an important holiday. And I'm looking forward to the conversation, because I think that as enlightened as I became over Juneteenth, I think that a lot of you may also find that there's a lot more to it than you realized. So I'm looking forward to that conversation, and but that's not going to happen next week. That'll be the week after. We do have some staffing issues coming up, so it could be a quiet week next week, or there could be the Rogers show. So we'll see what happens. We're going to continue to work through and try to come up with a way to make this happen. So a free salad's going to be in Japan. I don't know that he may. Oh, he says break. So all of that is to say that we're going to have an interesting staff availability next week. We don't even know who all is going to be here. So we do know some people that are not. Free Salad is going to be in Japan. Julie and I are going to be in Nashville. My son's getting married. So
congrats on that.
Yeah. Looking forward to a weekend in Nashville. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So Nashville is just, you've got Mount Eagle out there on 24, and it's a big mountain, and it's like the wall between North Georgia and the rest of Tennessee. So our friend Gary lives in Franklin, Tennessee, and he can't hear us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'd really like to be able to get him engaged, but so that's what's going on, folks. We're going to close up the net. Where's my script at? I think I've already said virtually everything. Tune in next week. We don't know what's going to happen. The week after that, we think we're going to talk about Juneteenth. Thank you for allowing us to serve as your net control this evening. Good night, everyone. This is Atlanta 946. WQYR 514. My name is Justin.
And this is WSAL 368, Atlanta 263. My name is Rogers.
We are North Georgia GMRS Network.
And good night.
Good night.
Good net tonight. WRIT 241, Atlanta 403. Clear the net.
And this is WR for Blue Ridge 63.
Bye.